Hi, everybody, and welcome to Suburban Parents Talk. I
Hi,
am Jen Cox, and I am joined by my friend Sarah. How are you, Sarah?
I'm good. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. Very well. I'm a little bit sick of winter. I'm getting into that cabin fever
Oh,
winter slump stage. It happens every year, February, March. You get a few days where it's a glimmer of plus whatever, and then it plummets again.
I call it the February blues. I get the February blues every February without fail. I think it's
It
like a lack of
is
sunshine and
fresh air, all of it.
yeah,
I hear
I
you.
hear you.
So we have a very special episode today.
I
We are
do.
talking purely about teenage mental well-being and mental health. Sarah came up with this idea a couple weeks ago, and I loved it because, well, not only does she have teenagers, but I know it's difficult anyway with teens, but it's got to be a really, really hard time, especially with COVID in the mix.
It's really hard. I'm seeing changes in them, and not just. I mean, of course, teenagers always do the emotional roller coaster. That's part of being a teenager, but it's different. It's different. So I'm really excited to talk to today's guests. I'm glad that we're able to expose this a little bit and hopefully help other parents that are dealing with this right now, because it's like, what do you do? How do you help? How do you and I don't know what the answer is. So hopefully we'll find out today.
Yeah, we have Dr. Potty coming on in about 15 minutes, and she's the co-founder and president and CEO of the Strongest Families Institute. And then you also booked Juanita Jones from Champlain College. So we're
Mhm.
going to get to our guests in the next couple of minutes. I see them in our waiting room. But before we get to that, we are going to do our mom rant to kick things off today. So Sarah and I kind of like flip a coin. Who's doing the mom rant? Who wants to rant about something? So hockey is back. My son has been playing in hockey since he was 5, and he's now 8. And it's been lovely going back. I just love the sound of the skates on the ice and their little voices, and they're doing their drills. But one thing that I've noticed, and look, I know we're all guilty of it. I'm not saying I'm not, but I've noticed that parents are always on their cell phones in the stands. I've noticed it at all the sporting events. And your kid will do something amazing and look up in those stands. And if the person, like the parent, is buried in their phone, it kills you. Like I saw a mom once who missed a goal and she knew it. And she like looked up and went, I missed it. Oh no, I
Uh,
missed it. And I thought about, when my mom used to bring me to like gymnastics or dance class, she didn't have a cell phone. So she sat there and she kind of watched. And I think it means a lot to kids to
it
see
does.
mom and dad kind of invested in watching a little bit. Look, I know we're going to take it out and check a text or whatever. And I take my phone out to snap some photos. But I see some parents, I mean, they literally park it and they're just buried in that phone. So my little piece of advice would just be look up once in a while, give them a little nod, a little wave. It's
Mhm.
embarrassing to them, but they do like it. They do like it.
Well, so none of my children are, well, so I've got the littlest one in tennis. That's the only one that we can actually be in the same, because like the kids that dance now, you can't, as a parent, especially with all the COVID and all the restrictions and stuff, you can't go in. And even
Right.
tennis, you can't go in. So I mean, you're in the same building, but you don't get to watch. So I don't really have any of those experiences. I don't. I'm never in the same. I don't get to watch anyway. But I notice it a lot at restaurants, and I'm always so sad seeing people just like, you're at a restaurant as a family, and sometimes it's the teenager, sometimes it's the parents, but they're just, on their phone, and like, what happened to conversation? I mean, the
You
rule
can
for
tell when
us,
it's not you can
yeah,
tell when it's not like a pertinent email too. Like, you got to answer somebody, fine, you do it quick. But I
right.
see what you're saying. I see the people, they're just scrolling through news
Scrolling.
items or Facebook, right?
No,
Yeah,
I
that's
and I mean, even nowadays at the restaurants when you have to like scan to get the menu, and so I have to use my phone at a restaurant because I have to see the menu. Even that, I feel like, oh, I'm judging myself. I don't want my phone at the table at the restaurant. But
I saw a restaurant on social media the other day that offered a 10% discount on the bill if you put all your cell phones in a little basket in the middle of the table.
I would go. Where is this?
They
Fine,
actually, yeah,
I'll go.
they're offering like a little incentive, like to pay attention to your family.
Oh,
Yeah,
I love
it's pretty
that. I would
interesting.
totally support that.
So I think my little piece of advice to all the parents out there, just live in the moment a little bit more, right? Because it goes so
Yeah.
fast. And when they're so cute in the little sports and all those little extracurriculars, you don't want to miss that stuff, you know? All right, I'm going to let in our first guest. We have Juanita, who is waiting in our waiting room. Hello.
Hi, Juanita.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So Juanita is from Champlain. She works at Champlain College in St. Lambert as the thought leader as well as psychologist. I mean, I want to know a little bit more about thought leadership. It's an
Did you call it thought leader?
Yeah, is
Oh, that's interesting. I might use that.
Oh, leadership coordinator. I thought
but that's interesting.
Yeah, thought leadership. I thought that was really cool. Steal it away.
Yeah, I coordinate the leadership program as well. Yeah.
I see. And what I found interesting as well, and I'm just going to bring it up before we get to all of my myriad of questions. I thought it was really interesting to see in your bio that you started your career teaching or as a psychologist at the university level, and then after that you went to work in early childhood in the mental health team at high school and elementary schools. And now that you're at CEGEP, you've now done every age group. You've spanned all the ages in mental health, so that must be really interesting and bring a different dynamic to what you're able to provide.
That's just... I really have. So after I finished elementary, high school, I thought, CEGEP's the only age group I haven't worked with. And I do have 3 kids of my own. I'm like, they will eventually be at that age, which they are very close to now. So I thought I would apply at the CEGEP level. And in fact, I'm loving this age group.
Yeah.
I'm finding it such a special age from 16 to 21. There's such rich opportunity for growth. The kids are still young enough that they're not so set in their ways like I am at a certain point, and that they're at an age also that they can have agency over change. Whereas sometimes working with kids in elementary, their home life or their situation is so that it's very difficult to implement change that is rapid, or you can plant seeds and whatnot. So what a privilege to work with this age group. I'm loving every minute of it. Yeah, might retire here. We'll see.
Well, so yes, I also have teenagers. I have a 14 and an almost 17-year-old, and the 17-year-old is, of course, now applying to CEGEPs. So, I mean, it's interesting that you said that this age group, you love it because you're able to you're set in your own ways, but you're able to see in them that they bring a different view of things, and that's exactly I love not hanging out with his friends because that's weird, but when you overhear, like, he's got his friends over and he's chatting with them, and you kind of overhear a lot of their conversations, it makes me reflect on my own sense of I'm a little bit set in my ways, and it's refreshing. I love it. You're right.
Yeah, they're becoming they're emerging adults, right? So they're exercising their own judgments, their viewpoints in life. They're way more emotionally, I think, advanced and connected to current events than I believe we were back in my day. And so, there's definitely things we can learn from our teens. Absolutely. And I think they're exposed to more things than we ever were. And their open-mindedness and willingness to learn is there. So in some settings, I don't know, it's depending on what setting we're talking about, but it sounds like your teen is someone that you can really appreciate having a conversation with. Absolutely. Yeah.
But so I guess, in talking a little bit about not just mental health, but also the current state of mental health, which I think, especially in my, I'm not a professional, but I see changes in the teenagers when it comes to, they're not allowed to see their friends for, there's confinement, then there's lack of confinement, then school, then masks, then bubbles, then there was a lot for them to deal with over and above just regular teenage-erness. It is, and I've seen in my own teenagers kind of like a lack of motivation. I mean, they're good students. They normally do very well. I mean, they still are doing very well, but I've just noticed more of like why bother? You don't even know if you're going to be in school next week. Like, well, why bother? Is that something that it's just? Is that something that's kind of prevalent now?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they've had to adapt so quickly to different scenarios and have had very little choice or option in it. So as we know with teenagers, it's very important to offer them choices and then be involved and have agency. And all of these things have happened and to them, right? And they've lost very important moments in their life, very poignant moments, such as, graduating, turning 18, second birthday in a row that they've missed out, and having to adapt, of course, to masks and social isolation and not being able to see friends guilt-free. If, for example, they snuck a friend in or saw someone, and having to deal also with what the implications of even carrying possibly the virus and giving it to someone that they love at home. And so the amount of responsibility that have been put on their shoulders in terms of even keeping the people that they love safe. And I've worked with students that have, and a lot of our population were in fact the ones working in the front lines, right? Working in the food industry at the IGAs, and sometimes bringing the virus home, and that has had huge implications on their mental health in terms of feeling guilty or responsible, right? So there's a lot there that our teens are maneuvering, and so in terms of what you were saying about lack of motivation and the unpredictability of things, absolutely. I mean, if you think of all the protective factors that we put in place for our teens or our children, right? Being part of sports and the social aspect and everything that the school system brings in terms of staying connected. So being completely isolated from all of that, put in a scenario at home, which that scenario is more or less, but it varies depending on the home life. So some people already are coming in with disadvantages at home. We don't know the range of either abuse, neglect, substance use, poverty, whatever the challenges that are already prevalent before the virus occurred has only been heightened. The challenges have only been increased. Previous mental health possible issues that were already present have been exacerbated by COVID for also family members. So I think maneuvering all of that has, of course, affected motivation and I guess desire to get out of that that funk, if you will, but kids are adaptable. So the minute, I don't know if you've noticed, but the minute that schools do reopen and they do get back into the swing of things, fortunately, if all else is well, and we're not looking at other issues that I mentioned, then they do rebuild very quickly and they should connect. But if you do see that there is a period of time over 4 to 6 weeks where your teen or your child is showing signs of depression or anxiety and not seeming to be able to get out of it, then definitely it is worth looking further into it and getting some support that we can talk about later. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like, one of the sentences that you said, it makes me a little sad. It's a heavy sentence, but you said, and I hadn't even realized that if you sneak a friend in, like a teenager, a 16-year-old who sees a friend and then there's like a sense of guilt because you just did something like wrong, that's really heavy to think about. I hadn't thought about it that way. I mean, we had at one point, let him have a friend over and whatever when we weren't allowed. But yeah, I didn't realize that there might be a guilt that goes with that.
Absolutely.
It's something to think about as a parent, that you have to kind of be there for your teen when something as small as that, like it's not a normal situation, but we're all in it. Are there other things that, I mean, I know we touched on a lot of those varying degrees of what the kids are going through. Is there something that's more prevalent than others? Is there something that's like, we should, as parents, we should be watching out for this because this is kind of what's going on with all the teens?
Well, you alluded to the social media, the phones, and the tech. The how quickly you can slip into that virtual world and away from connectedness in what is happening or being in the moment and being mindful. And what we've noticed is that this age group has had to rely more than ever on their devices, their technology, or social media to stay connected, right? Whether it be through video gaming or Snapchat, which is apparently Facebook is not the thing anymore.
No.
I'm sure you all know that now.
Oh yeah.
Snapchat or just stay, or of course the TikTok videos or staying distracted. So because I think being in isolation and removed from everyday life, boredom ensues, right? Being more bored. Even though boredom is the mother of creativity, I don't think kids have the luxury, and I call it a luxury, of sitting with boredom long enough to get to a place where they can come up with creative ideas and other things to do. They have access to distractions right away. So I think that may have become an issue in terms of addiction on getting addicted to social media and TikTok. So I don't know. I'm a parent, so this is a constant battle, trying to monitor the minute that they have a lull or boredom appear, that they go back to their devices. So being at home, parents are working. I'm sure we've lost a bit of control over access to those devices at home during the COVID time. So keep an eye on that, making sure that you go back into a more healthy usage of technology. And of course, feeling depressed and anxiety is on the rise. So anxiety in terms of reconnecting with your social groups. If you think about it, some students have mentioned that they're nervous to take off their mask because their face have never been seen.
Wow.
So the being self-conscious about how they look, removing the mask. There's a lot at play in terms of body image and self-esteem, and things that are normal, we all went through as teenagers, has been exacerbated in the sense that, I've been gone for so long and now I'm back. Do I look different? Am I going to get a different reaction? Are my friends still going to like me? Did they make new friends? So there's a lot of anxiety returning to normal life as well, especially in your sport or other activities that they might do. That they've been plucked out of life and then thrown back in. So it's like, eesh. So there's a lot of anxiety about that. So please keep an eye on that. And
I just like to interrupt really fast because I see Dr. Potty in our waiting room and she's nodding away and agreeing. I'm just going to add her to the stream now. Hi, Dr. Potty.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for asking me to join this great conversation. It's such an important conversation for us to have.
I'm so happy to have you. And I'm hearing Juanita talking and I see you agreeing. And I just thought, okay, we need to all get into this conversation here.
And I'm getting tears in my eyes too, because guys, it's been a long 2 years and our children are our future. And there's so many things that we have to consider, especially as they're being thrown back into, what we hope will soon be the old routine, but they don't know what that's like anymore.
Exactly.
It's a new reality where, even when we come out of all of this, things are going to be very different. But I'm happy that you touched on you discussed the whole virtual thing, because there's been, for me anyway, there's been this balance between this is too much phone time or virtual time, but on the other hand, that's your only, I can't say, go play with your friends, because you're not allowed to go play with your friends. So, that is their only connection to their friends. So there has been a little bit of a struggle between figuring out how much time, how much should you be limiting that right now, given that that's all they've got in their lives to keep connected to their friends.
And that's not just a problem with teenagers. I have an 8-year-old son that was home last year on virtual. So the minute he got off the computer for school, he wanted to go on with his friends from school and play video games, because that was his only time to socialize. And I mean, the screen time was out of control. It was hard.
And so again, back to my particular son, my age group, where he's now applying to CEGEPs. I mean, CEGEPs, the deadline to apply to the CEGEPs is March 1st. But now keep in mind, this has been a year where continually the report cards have been pushed back and the grades have been pushed back. And we only got our first report card last week. But now, so there's the stress of, okay, well, I'm about to find out what my grades are, but I already have to apply to CEGEP. And I don't have time to fix anything or work on anything, so there's a huge amount of stress. That how does this even work if you don't even have your grades yet? What do you do? And so now you've been through one whole session of kids coming in after dealing with all this. Is there something is there an additional stress, and is there something that, I mean, I know that you obviously can't talk about how to get into CEGEP, but is there I guess I want to hear that it's going to be okay. It's going to be
I
okay.
was just going to say it's mostly, of course, as parents, we worry about our kids' future. We have a lot of anxiety around that. So it's about managing ourselves as well. And it is going to be okay. And so in the sense that we did have the first round of first semester students. If, for example, they do land in a program that is not of their choice, they can transfer over the next semester as well as if they can do well. And they obviously have to perform and do well and be able to transfer over, of course. But with all else being equal, there is somehow a level playing field for everybody at this moment. And so there are things we can control and there are things we can't control. So we just have to focus on the elements that are within our control. And of course, managing stress and anxiety about education and career choices and program choices is part of what we do here at the CEGEP system. And a lot of it is about giving perspective and understanding that this path it's a journey. And it's very rarely a straight and narrow journey. I can talk about my journey. It has twists and turns and ups and downs. And there's always opportunities within the challenges. So building resilience, I think, is a big key right now. So I think the flip side of it, and maybe Dr. Potty can talk about the importance of building resilience in our children during these challenges. And that will go a long way. Maybe I'll pass it over.
Absolutely. And one thing that I worry about is we know our data is suggesting that youth anxiety and depression issues have likely doubled since the pandemic. And that's going to be a huge factor for us to start considering and looking for those early signs and being patient. We have to come out of this, but we can't go back into having really high expectations because our children they're not the same right now. They've been through a lot in 2 years. And as you said, that added stress, the added stress of, I think about, guys, just think about back when we were graduating. Remember how exciting that was to get your yearbook photos, to go around and get your friends to sign. I think about all of these, one-time events that these youth will never get back. So we've got to be really careful as health professionals, as educators, as parents, as caregivers. We have to consider each of us, whether it doesn't matter how old, whether you're a toddler or a child or a youth or an adult or a senior. We've experienced the pandemic in so many different ways. There's so many impacts. Routines have been disrupted. So what we have to be so careful of, and I am very, very worried about our children and youth. I feel that the investment in mental health for them, it's just not quite there yet. So I'm very hopeful with some of the infusion of government investment. I hear that Quebec just announced recently $3 million into mental health. That's great. But what kind of services are they going to provide? So when you think of or enlist, right, to help people get over some of these COVID impacts. So when you think about anxiety and depression and those major life stressors that you just described about applying to school, going to school, we have to be kind and considerate and understand what each individual has gone through and then provide them skills, evidence-based skills to combat their anxiety and their depression. Because if we do not build resilience, as Juanita has alluded to, we're going to miss the mark. And the impacts of COVID are here for quite a few years. So we've got to get ahead of the game.
Amazing.
Oh, there's so much to take in. So much to know. So I guess my last question about, mainly about post-secondary stuff is, I think we've already touched on it though, but what's the one takeaway for parents right now that either have children who are in their post-secondary studies and are kind of struggling, or are about to embark in post-secondary world, which is a little way different than high school, and in not ideal scenario with the whole pandemic and everything.
So Anita, before you jump in, because I'm sure you'll have something else, but for me, one thing that I think we have to identify early signs of significant anxiety and depression that's causing impairment. So it's great if a youth is excited about applying for university, but we have a proportion of the population who are so plagued by anxiety and depression that it's impairing them. They're not going out. They're just so anxious about applying or even going to university. What does that all mean? I think it's so important for us to identify those early signs. If you had a youth pre-COVID that was outgoing, had, grades were great, didn't have performance anxiety, wasn't really, too paralyzed by test taking, but now they've changed, their mood has changed, and they're isolating. They're not socializing even virtually with their friends. They're clingy. They're crying. That you've seen a huge change in their behavior from being outgoing to otherwise. Those are some real early signs that there's been a decline in mental well-being.
I'll add to that. Very important. Absolutely. So we look at it in the general functioning, right? So and you mentioned all of those points. So as a parent, right, you just said the social isolation, are they more withdrawn than usual? Their sleeping patterns, have they changed? Their eating patterns, how are they, their mood, their overall mood? Absolutely. And I think those are huge markers to identify. And open, I think you might agree, opening the lines of communication. And I just think that's good common sense parenting to begin with, but even more so now, getting to know your teens. They want to have a conversation. Like, I work with teens every day, and they want to connect with their parents. Primarily, they don't want to connect with me, right? They want to ultimately, part of my role as a therapist is to help guide and open that line of communication with their loved ones, whoever their significant caregivers are. That's their ultimate goal. They want to be understood and they want to be heard. And as a parent, it is hard. I'm a psychologist, and it's hard when if you hear your child in pain, or you just want to fix it and you want to give solutions and you want to talk about when it happened to you, right? It's like, I've been there, or you want to minimize it and say it's not so bad because you don't want them to see it so bad. So you don't want it to be just, you want to minimize it. But all of these reactions are actually quite harmful, unfortunately, because all that is communicated is that I'm not hearing the way it is for you, right? And so to be able to hold that space for your child long enough to say, I'm here for you, I love you, and I want to hear what it's like for you, and just sit, just like counseling, I sit on your hands and just be present, and then be able to together problem solve what they might need from you. Because parents, we metabolize emotions for kids. So if they open up to you and say, I'm so scared of going back to school, and either the parent freaks out, oh my God, why? It's no big deal. What you're actually mirroring the way they should be feeling about it, right? So we metabolize it, and we try to metabolize it in a healthy way, and be present and strong and hold that frame. And please reach out for help, like Dr. Prati had mentioned. In your area, I looked up, there's Head and Hands, I believe that's in you have a Head and Hands organization in your area of where whomever is listening, I think it's from the NDG area.
Yeah, NDG, West Island. Yeah.
West Islands. I think there's the CLSC, the Benny Farm. There are kids helplines that you can promote and invite your kids.
Yeah.
There's the Tele Kids Help Phone, TRACOM, which is a crisis center. There's a couple of resources out there.
We do a follow-up blog post, so I'll make sure to put those resources in the follow-up blog post. So anybody who's watching will have all of those up on the website following the broadcast.
Perfect.
And Stress Families is available in your region too, right? With the Montreal Island, the West Montreal Island, through the CIUSSS. And just to give a little bit of that background, our programs are evidence-based, so they're all skill-based. And when I go back to those children, whether they're stress, anxiety, and depression, if we can equip them with life skills, we are seeing life-changing impacts. So, low intensity services are not going to always be low cost, low intensity, are not going to get to the root of the problem. We want full, evidence-based, scientifically proven programs, similar to Strongest Families, or a psychologist or a social worker who's highly trained in these types of things. And I remember a young Francophone person. I'm going to give you an example because I think it's really important to give some case examples. This young Francophone person from Quebec had presented with severe separation, and this was not typical pre-pandemic. Very severe separation issues stemming from the pandemic, anxieties and high performance anxiety, wanting to be better, worrying about mistakes. The anxiety was so bad that she, was constantly feeling sick before, having to do anything, headaches. But then 4 months later, after equipping her with our skills, so weekly telephone coaching when and where they need it, in the privacy of their own home, she then was able to actually do things on her own. She wasn't as clingy. It really built a lot of confidence. And I find that that's a similar trend that we're hearing from people who complete our programs of all ages, really. And she was able to socialize safely, right, through virtual means. And so we overcame some of her functional impairment so she could be doing things because she said her skills helped her control her anxiety signs. And Sarah, I think about your team. So I remember another youth that recently just finished the program and had developed pandemic type of social anxiety, not wanting to leave the home. And I mean, many of us parents can relate to that. I have 3 adult children and 3 little grandchildren. There's been such a huge disruption in change of routines. It's hard for us to get back on track. So equipping them with skills, establishing new routines, helping them plan before they're going back to school or university or daycare. That's what these programs are designed to do. And I remember, and I'm going to quote, she said, "I am now able to leave the house without feeling nauseous. Anxiety has less control over me. I use skills to lower my anxiety levels and focus on life around me." And I think, Juanita, you had said that exact thing when I first came into this talk. That is so compelling. Some of our programs, our research has shown that our telephone-based coaching and our proven programs that are skill-based overcome diagnosable mental health disorders in children and youth within a 4-month period. And how compelling is that? And this is just an example, right? We have great psychologists and social workers. And if they're teaching these same type of skills, that's where we're going to get ahead of the game. These children are our future. We need to provide them the resilience and the skills that will have life-changing, long-lasting impacts on them.
Amazing. Oh, I've taken so much. I'm actually taking personal notes while we're doing this. Like, I constantly say to my son, "I know how you feel. One time, Mommy," and I see him glaze over, and I never really thought of that whole point as well. Like, it's kind of preparing me for how I'm going to talk to my 8-year-old when he is a teenager. Sarah, did you have any more questions at all, Sarah, for Juanita?
Oh, you're on
or
mute.
Dr. Potty?
She's on mute.
Did you have any more questions?
Sorry.
Oh, you're on mute. Yeah.
No, yeah, sorry. No, I was saying that. No, I thought that this was amazing. I took away so much helpful information. You're right. Me too, Jen. I often like, oh, well, when I was your age, let me tell you what I did. Like, no, you're right. I have to be a little bit more, well, like you mentioned, I have to sit on my hands and just, oh, that must be difficult.
I'm really going to actually have to physically sit on my hands.
Yeah,
literally.
I will sit
It's
on my
appropriate
hands.
sometimes to talk about your past. I'm not saying I'm just, but if you're looking to
No, it's true.
have that conversation, yeah.
I'm going to sit on my hands way more often.
Absolutely. Well, I guess we'll sign off with Juanita first. Juanita, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was a wonderful experience. What a great show. Wow. I as for parents, this is amazing. Yeah.
Thank you
for all that what
yeah.
you're doing.
We hope, and thanks to amazing guests like you to come on and share this really important information that people can really take valuable tips from and advice. So thank you, Juanita, so much.
Last thing,
Nice to
we're
meet
all doing well as parents. We have to not judge it. So even though I'm giving you some feedback, like I said, it's not to be judgmental. We have to have self-compassion first, and then we can have compassion for others. So I just wanted to leave with that. So thank you so much for having me.
That's the perfect thing to leave with, because I'm so hard on myself as a parent.
No, we're hard on ourselves.
Just say that, like, you know,
we learn, we grow, and yeah, we integrate. That's all. So
That's
thank
right.
you for having me.
Thank you, Juanita. Thank you so much. Oh, she's amazing. Amazing. Great,
Great.
great guest to find, Sarah. And Dr. Potty, I'm sorry I just threw you right in the mix there, but I just saw you and I thought you would be a great asset for all of us to talk together. But let me properly introduce you now, because I couldn't do it before. Dr. Potty is the co-founder, president, and CEO of the Strongest Families Institute. Can you tell everybody a little bit about what this institute is and what you guys do?
Yeah, so Strongest Families Institute is an award-winning charity recognized for our social innovation, which is providing telephone-based coaching, skill-based programs that are proven, as I mentioned before, to families, adults, children. We span all the ages, and doing it in a way that's timely for them, but also at times convenient to them. So getting help to people, high quality help to people when and where they need it.
Hi, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. So we're thrilled with this episode to be able to offer to one lucky family a 4-pack of tickets to see Disney on Ice coming to the Bell Center this March. And so to enter this contest, all you have to do is comment an answer to our secret question. Comment on today's episode. And the secret question is the following. Which Disney character would you say you identify with the most and why? And I'll start this little game by going first. I would have to say I'm probably most like Belle because I like that she's always got her nose stuck in a book and her sense of adventure. I want to go on an adventure in the great wide somewhere. The end. Have fun. Good luck.
I just want to reiterate to all the viewers that we will put up all of Dr. Potty's information as well as information on the Strongest Families Institute and the resources that Juanita mentioned as well. So thank you so much, Dr. Potty, for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I love this. I could just chat with you all day.
We might just have to have you back one day. We'll have another reunion party with Juanita and the whole gang.
That sounds great. Anytime.
Thank you so much, Dr. Potty.
Thank you. Take care now.
Wow, we have a lot of homework.
Yeah, that was very informative. That was a lot of information. I'm really happy.
Yeah, me too.
It's been a stressful time with the, and it's not, I mean, I feel so bad. Like Juanita was saying that, it's supposed to be a time when you're supposed to be excited about yearbook stuff and grads and whatever. And, the other day I overheard them talking about grad and, one said like, okay, what are we doing? Like, what's the plan? What are we, let's start shopping and doing stuff. And the other one said like, let's wait and find out if we're even going to have a grad. Like, it's so, they're so like,
I know it is. It's such like in our lives as adults, that 2 years, right? Like she just said, oh, we've been around for 10 years and then it was 8, not, like you forget because 2 years in adult life is just, but there's so few years when you're a teenager and a kid and like you hate that they're missing out on those moments.
I really do. I really, really do.
I hear you.
My 14-year-old daughter, she's in Sec 3 in grade 9 and she pointed out that she hasn't had a normal high school year yet.
So true.
It's 2 years, but it's 3 school years that she's been dealing with this. So she hasn't had a normal school year yet. Not one.
I know. Well, hopefully people can take some of the advice that we got from our experts and just make the best of it, I guess, right? I love that whole key on resilience. They'll be very resilient as adults having lived this, right?
Yep.
All right, let's switch gears very quickly because we've had a long episode, but I love it because it was all very pertinent. Let's move on to out and about, what we are doing around town. It's been too cold to play outside and it's too stir crazy to play indoors. So what are you doing, Sarah?
I am not, well, so I am not an outdoorsy person in the winter. I don't do winter sports. I don't like the cold. And this past week has been way too cold to do anything interesting. So I have not really done much other than, of course, since restaurants just opened, I spent an entire week doing nothing but restaurants. So I had been waiting for them to open and they opened. And then I did a full week of a restaurant a day pretty much.
Fun.
I didn't
with
care.
With your family or just with your hubby?
Sometimes like last weekend, I did a couple of nights just with my hubby. But we've also done dinners with the kids. I took advantage of like all the places that I hadn't seen in, forever. we hit them all. So we kind of did that. What I want to do once it's not quite so bitter cold is apparently there's a skating rink that has dropped in Montreal in the Quartier des Spectacles, I think, that is supposed to be bigger than Rockefeller Center. So I want to do that as soon as I can with the kids, without the kids, I don't know, but I want to go skating at this super cool skating rink and see what all the hype is about. So that's what I want to check out and about, but I haven't been able to yet.
The great thing about those rinks too, if they're refrigerated, they'll last, the ice is maintained so well, and that it'll last well into March, even as the temperatures start to go up, because they're refrigerated from underneath. Yeah, so you still have time. You still have a couple weeks.
That's what I'm going to be up to as soon as I can. What about you? Anything cool?
Well, I am going on, Parks Canada is holding a media event. It was supposed to be last weekend, but the weather messed it up. So this weekend, my husband, my son, and I are trying cross-country skiing and fat bikes down at the canal.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I don't know how long that will be going on given the weather, but they do have that going on. But in terms of ice skating, I don't know if I mentioned in a previous broadcast, there's a great refrigerated rink in Marché Bon Secours over in the Old Port.
Oh, yeah.
They even have DJs on Friday and Saturday night. And they do and it's open like all day long. Like you can skate until 10 or 11. And they have different theme nights and it's refrigerated. So I know it's going on for a couple of more weeks.
Maybe I'll check that out then.
Yeah. And one other thing for anybody who likes skating or hockey, there are I don't know if you've ever heard of the bleu, blanc, rouge. And I am saying it right. It's not rouge. But the Habs Association created a whole bunch of refrigerated rinks that are set up all across Montreal South Shore. I think there's a total of 13. They're really well maintained. They all have like the little huts with the lockers so you can change indoors. It's usually 2 rinks. One has pickup hockey, one is just skating, and it's refrigerated. And they're in most of the cities. It's free. And so if you go on the website and look for bleu, blanc, rouge, it's a tongue twister, you will find all the listing of all the rinks around the city. So strap on those skates and get out there before it turns to a big puddle.
Yeah, me too. I was going to say, yeah, but I like those days. I'm waiting for the puddles.
All righty. Well, that concludes another episode of Suburban Parents Talk. Sarah, thank you so much for coming up with this topic of teen mental health wellness. I want to thank our guest again and remind everybody that the blog post will have all the resources we mentioned in the episode. So thank you, Sarah.
My pleasure. Thank you for another wonderful, stimulating conversation.
I love it. I love it. And if anybody has any questions or comments, feel free to leave them and we can discuss them on an upcoming episode. So we will see you in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.